Home Secretary, before we get into what you're proposing today, let's go back to your predecessor's big election promise. Can we agree first that so far your government has simply failed to smash the gangs?
I don't think that's true or a fair assessment of what we've done since we've been in office. We have started working much closer upstream with our European partners, particularly the French, but with others in Turkey and in Germany as well. We know that the action we have taken already on confiscating dinghies and small boats and working with law enforcement in Europe, we've stopped 20,000 illegal crossings across the Channel. So I think we've had very good progress, but what we acknowledge is that, of course, we've got much more to do. So I think that the law enforcement work is good, but, of course, what I'm now announcing is the next stage of our proposals to deal with illegal migration, which is to deal with some of the pull factors and the demand that there is for people to get across the Channel.
Well, I absolutely want to come to that, but honestly, 503 people crossed the Channel in small boats last week. We're heading for a record year. I was talking to some people across Europe this week, and they're saying that the gangs are now so sophisticated they're offering package tours from Dhaka to Dover. Whatever you were doing before this weekend, it didn't succeed, did it?
I think we've made progress. Look, we have been working to tackle organised immigration crime. I've hosted, since I've been in office, and my predecessor, Yvette Cooper, hosted multiple summits with international partners. All of that careful, patient work, building international cooperation to tackle organised immigration crime is bearing fruit. But what we acknowledge is, in addition to that, we do need to deal with the pull factors that are drawing people across the Channel.
You know, to explain why you have to take these steps, surely we've got to understand what hasn't happened. And I just want to show you something which you're probably aware of. Well, our colleague Jason Farrell followed a large group at Dunkirk this week. And he showed them buying life jackets in a local shop, getting on a bus, wading into the sea, all without challenge from the French police. Let me ask you this, at least. Are you going to ask the French government to hand back the 500 million quid that we've given them?
Look, we're working
They're obviously not doing the job.
We're working very closely with our colleagues in France. I've had good discussions myself with interior ministers in France. Of course, there have been some issues with the French government themselves.
I would have great discussions with anybody who gave me 500 million.
Look,
I didn't have to do anything for it.
We are making progress. And we've got the historic returns agreement with France, the so-called one-in, one-out policy. We've seen over 100 people return to France. We are starting to break the business model of those who sell, as you say, these effectively packaged tours across the Channel. We've had people who've been returned, and now somebody who's been returned twice, who now know that actually they're wasting their money getting on a boat in the Channel. It is, of course, going to take some time to make all of these changes. That's why I'm setting out more of our proposals on reducing the pull factors that draw people into the north of France and persuade them that getting on that boat is the right thing to do. Actually, the proposals I'm announcing will change the calculus of people who are looking to make illegal Channel crossings.
You mentioned the one-in, one-out policy. It's turned into be one-in, one-out, one-back, because the French aren't actually keeping them.
Actually, what's happened, Trevor, is...
The intelligent viewer would be asking...
But let me just challenge that, because the individual who returned was quickly picked up by us.
Two of them.
Yes, and the biometrics immediately showed us that this is a person who's got no right to be here and had already been returned to France. We've already deported one of those individuals. The second is due for deportation very soon. We are showing the organised crime gangs and the migrants themselves who are looking to get in the Channel, this is not worth your time. This is not a deal worth doing. Do not get in that boat.
Well, look, the intelligent viewer is going to ask, if it's all going so well, why the drama of a new policy?
No, what we're acknowledging is that we need to deal with the pull factors that draw people in the first place. So, of course, we're doing the work upstream in relation to organised immigration crime. We're working with international partners to do so. We've already prevented 20,000 illegal Channel crossings. I know we have to go further because people are still getting in boats every day, crossing the Channel, putting their lives at risk and those of other people as well. I want to break that business model, and I need to show that we can reduce those pull factors that persuade people that they should try to come to this country. That's what the new suite of proposals, the most sweeping set of reforms in modern times, that's what that is designed to do. Because I know illegal migration is causing huge divides here in our own country, and I do believe we need to act if we are to retain public consent for having an asylum system at all.
All right, well, let's talk about what you plan to do. I know that you've been talking to the people who run the system in Denmark. And the aim here is to make it harder for asylum seekers to come to UK, easier for them to be deported, less in, more out. What exactly are you planning to do that hasn't actually been done before?
Well, we're going to change a generations-old assumption that providing refuge is permanent. In fact, we're going to make that a temporary status that will be reviewed every 2.5 years. We still believe very strongly, and I believe, that we must provide sanctuary those who are fleeing wars and danger and conflict abroad. We still want to be a country that does that. But at the moment, our system is particularly generous compared to other countries in Europe, where after 5 years, you're effectively automatically settled in this country. We will change that so that the status you get when your claim is granted and you're accepted as a refugee is for 2.5 years, and which is renewable every 2.5 years, and you're on a much longer path to permanent settlement in this country of 20 years. So that is changing the way that we look at refugee status, and it is designed to prevent some of those pull factors, because what I also want to do, alongside the changes that I'm making on reducing those pull factors, is to create more safe and legal routes for people to come here legitimately at our invitation, which we believe is the best way to bring people over from danger abroad and help them settle in this country.
All right, well, let's take these in turn. It'll be 20 years before a refugee can apply for permanent settlement. But why would a young man who's coming to work and by and large is going to work in the black economy, send money home, why do you care about that? Because he's actually going to go home before that 20 years is out.
Well, we know that from what actually some of these individuals tell us themselves, that one of the draws to this country is the relatively generous periods of stay and ability to access permanent settlement very quickly, but also the family reunification rights that used to be the case, where effectively after 5 years you've got automatic family reunification. That was halted by my predecessor. That is one of the changes that we will be announcing as well.
But
so
he's still
there are
10, 15 years that he can work, he can build up money, he can send money home. We know remittances have gone up more than doubled in the last decade. That's why people do this.
Well, there's two things I would say to that. Firstly, as you will know, we're clamping down on illegal working in this country. We've announced new checks with digital ID, which is where we want to be by the end of this Parliament, one credential that allows employers to check someone's right to work in this country. Since we've been in office, there have been over 11,000 raids designed to tackle illegal working. We've made over 8,000 arrests, and actually 1,000 people have been removed from this country as a result of that enforcement activity. So we've massively ramped that up. But we know we need to go further.
I want to come back to that. Well, the other thing you want to do is to get the judges to be tougher. Does that mean, for example, you'd make it impossible for someone to claim they wouldn't be safe in France, as has happened recently?
Well, actually, as it happens, people have been pursuing claims that suggest that they wouldn't be safe in France, or that the standards of accommodation in France aren't as good as they are in this country. We have been challenging those cases in court, and we've pretty much been winning all of those challenges. That's under the one-in, one-out agreement that we have with the French. And actually, we've got a very successful track record now of a few months of winning those cases in court. So we have good arrangements at the moment, but what I'll be announcing tomorrow is what the government intends to do on Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, in particular, which is around the right to family life, where we want to constrain in legislation the way that that is applied in immigration cases. I think that's the right thing to do, because we've seen an expansion of the way that that right is applied in a way that is designed to frustrate the removal of those that, under our immigration rules, would not have the right to be in this country. So there will be legislation that will follow in relation to Article 8 and immigration cases. And we're, of course, discussing further reform, particularly on Article 3 of the European Convention, with our European partners as well. So, yes, we are looking at legal changes as well, but we are also challenging decisions here in this country and winning those cases too.
But you're not actually doing everything that Danes do, because that's all about essentially stopping people at the borders or returning them. In the end, though, the Danes have said that the reason that their numbers dropped is that they essentially made it really uncomfortable for people, asylum seekers, to be in Denmark without legal status. They put them in camps a long way away from cities. They made their accommodation very basic. What you might call a hostile environment. Is it your aim to create a hostile environment for asylum seekers here?
No, my aim is to deal with illegal migration, to stop this being an issue that is dividing our country and that is causing huge pressure across our communities. And I want to do that by reducing the number of arrivals that come across boats across the Channel into our country. And that is why we are changing that generations-old assumption of permanent status
but they will still have a pretty high
status.
chance of not being caught. Right now, the chances are sort of 1 in 30 of being returned. You might cut it to, I don't know, 1 in 15, but it still means 14 people out of 15 are still going to be stuck.
No, I reject that. I think that we can make these changes to reduce the number of arrivals coming into this country illegally and crossing the Channel. We're also going to be increasing the removals of people who have no right to be in our country. And alongside that, we will be creating new, safe, legal routes. They'll start modest to begin with, but as we get order and control into our system, they will grow in generosity. And I'm sending a clear signal to people is, do not get on a boat. Do not seek to come into this country illegally. That pathway is much more difficult. If you are someone we brought over legally on a safe and legal route, that journey to settlement will be easier because we want to incentivise the behaviour we want to see and disincentivise and prevent the behaviour that is drawing people dangerously across the Channel. You
talked about the pull factors. Asylum seekers come to Britain rather than, say, France. Partly, in fact, this is the principal reason the research that I've seen shows that we have several large minority communities into which they can fit, frankly, in which they can disappear. The Danes have a very hardline approach on this. They restrict asylum seekers' access to public housing in named areas where there are more than 30% of ethnic minorities, low levels of education, low incomes. And right now, they've got 63 such named areas. And they say that's actually critical to reducing the demand. Why aren't you talking about that approach?
Well, look, firstly, we're not going to be starting to dictate where people live based on percentages. That's not the sort of country that we are. And I don't think that ultimately in a country like ours, which is a very successful, generally speaking, very tolerant, multi-ethnic, multi-faith democracy, I don't think the test of integration here is whether you have a mix of coloured faces on a particular street or in a particular area.
You're making the case for the Danish system. I'm just telling you that there's an arm of the Danish system which is essential, and you're not adopting that.
No, I'm telling you that that's not something that I think translates into our country, and that's not something that we are going to be pursuing. But I also don't think that that's the sort of thing that we need in order to make our immigration system work in this country. At the moment, something like 40% of illegal migrants come into this country on a small boat. The same number are people who arrive on a student visa or a work visa, who at the end of that visa claim asylum and go into asylum accommodation as well. There is a lot to fix in our system where we have not been enforcing the rules that we should have been, and where our system has been too open to abuse. And the reforms that I am announcing tomorrow in the House will clamp down on all of that abuse and send a clear signal to people that we will have strong rules, we will bring order and control back into our system, and alongside that we will create new safe routes for people, because we still want to fulfil our obligations to help people fleeing wars and conflict around the world.
One last point on this issue. You're the daughter of immigrants yourself. These policies that you're promoting will be tough on people like your parents who moved because they're ambitious and want a better life for their children. But there's a deeper point that is being made by some people. How do you respond to people who say that you're being panicked into a racist immigration policy?
I reject that entirely. I am the child of immigrants. My parents came to this country legally in the late 60s and the early 70s. This is a moral mission for me. I can see that illegal migration is creating division across our country. I can see that it is polarising communities across the country. I can see that it is dividing people and making them estranged from one another. I don't want to stand back and watch that happen in my country. What is happening with our illegal migration system is this is a broken system. It's not right-wing talking points or fake news or misinformation that is suggesting that we've got a problem. I know because I have now seen this system inside out. It is a broken system. We have a genuine problem to fix. People are angry about something that is real. It is my job, therefore, to think of a proper solution to this very real problem, to do so in line with my values as a Labour politician, but also as a British citizen, and to have solutions that work so that I can unite a divided country. That matters more to me than almost anything else in politics. I'm not willing to stand back and watch my country be divided when I know we can fix the reason and the problem that is causing that division.
We have a budget in the next 2 weeks. Chancellor said she wouldn't break her manifesto pledge. Then she hinted she'd raise tax rates, right? And then she hinted that she wouldn't. The last welfare secretary said that she'd cut the winter fuel allowance, then she said she wouldn't. The party leader, happens to be Prime Minister, says that government should stick to the two-child cap. The deputy party leader, Lucy Powell, says that they shouldn't. Is there actually anybody in charge of the government?
Look, Trevor, yes, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are working very hard and absolute lockstep as they are writing that budget. I think that I'm a traditionalist on these matters and I don't believe in speculation about what may or may not be in the budget. I think everybody should just wait for the 26th of November when the Chancellor makes a statement and then we will all know.
Let me tell you who's not waiting, the bond markets. Let me show you what's happened this week. Bond yields this week. As you can see, it all goes down, it's all fine, and then, boof. That thing at the end is the Chancellor suddenly deciding that she's not going to raise tax rate. The chaos is already costing us. And they shoot up according to what the Chancellor says, doesn't say, and so on. This is the cost of your government's indecision.
No, look, I think what the Chancellor has set out is an absolute commitment to her fiscal rules. She made a recent speech where she made that very clear. She also pointed out that in our first budget as a government and in our spending review, we have prioritised funding public services, primarily the National Health Service, which I think people can start to see the payoff of that investment with the drop in NHS waiting list that we have seen under this government. She's been making the case for the principles that will drive her decisions in writing that budget on the 26th of November.
The problem is, I'm sure you can say, bolshy television interviewers having a go at us and all the rest of it. Let's hear from somebody who actually knows what they're talking about, former Governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King. Here's what he has to say about the process of policy making thus far.
The OBR produces, just before the budget, one number, and then they look round for what ideas almost written on the back of a fag packet about how you can raise an extra few billion here or a few billion there. That is not coherent tax strategy.
The former Governor of the Bank of England says you're making it up as you go along, back of a fag packet. Fair comment?
No, look, the Chancellor is working hard on the budget. She is going to set that budget out on the 26th of November. Everybody will have to wait until then to know what's in it. But she has already set out the things that she will not compromise on, which is our fiscal rules and maintaining economic stability in this country. That is her absolute top priority for her and also for this government. And that is what we will see on the 26th of November.
Let's talk about leadership. A lot of unrest on the backbenches. MPs are saying Prime Minister is never here. In fact, he's spent more time abroad than most of his predecessors in the first 16 months. But let's leave that aside. You are heading for a beating in the next May's local elections. Would it be time for Labour to bite the bullet, get really radical, find itself a new leader? We hear that the former Deputy Prime Minister is assembling her troops. There are people muttering, and I'm sure you have no ambitions yourself, but people talk about you. Is it time for Sir Keir Starmer to think again about whether he's the right person to lead Labour into next year's elections?
No, Keir Starmer is our Prime Minister. We won an election just under a year and a half or so ago when people thought that we would not win an election for maybe a generation or more. I have no time for these things that people say or brief off the record or any of this, frankly, Westminster bubble, tittle, tattle. As far as I'm concerned, every single member of this government has an incredibly important job to do. I have spent all of this week with my team sorting out what we are doing on the asylum system. Later this week, we'll make announcements on legal migration as well. Just this week, I also made a policy announcement on abolishing police and crime commissioners. We have, all of us in government, important jobs to do. We should be focused on delivering for the British people. That is what they expect of all of us. All of this chatter is here today, forgotten tomorrow. What matters is what you deliver for the country.
Well, it's not forgotten by all your cabinet colleagues because some of it is coming from them. What is your message to those who are saying that Sir Keir Starmer's days are numbered anyway?
Well, I have no time for things that people say either privately or anonymously. If people have things to say, they should have the courage of their convictions and say so publicly, and that is not what is happening. I think what happened at the beginning of this week was, with all of those anonymous briefings, was unedifying and deeply embarrassing for everyone concerned. I think the Prime Minister has dealt with it. I suggest everybody draws a line under it and moves on. As I say, all of this tittle, tattle, chitter, chatter might keep people going in the commentariat here in Westminster, but it is here today and absolutely forgotten tomorrow. What people remember and the things that last and stand the time is what you do for your country. And I suggest everyone in government and across the whole of the Labour Party will do as I know what they want to do, which is focus on that.
Home Secretary, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.